Hi, this is János, it's Real World Audio time, and we are continuing our saga on exploring the universe of Alnico and Ferrite as used in loudspeaker driver motors. And I'm still banging on the audio karma thread on people's experiences, what they experience, what they think about Alnico versus Ferrite, and I'm giving you my commentary on their commentaries. So here's one comment. I just had the greatest experience listening to a needle drop of the Beatles' Hey Jude UK LP. I've listened to this many times, but this was my first through my current setup. I could hear Paul McCartney's off microphone singing on the title track, as well as each of the other voices occasionally blending into one. That was just amazing. Maybe that's one of the reasons for the appeal of Alnico drivers, the way they make Beatles music sound right. All I know is that it just sounded perfect. A lot of Beatles music, especially the early to mid period stuff, has a bit of an in your face kind of sound, but it wasn't a problem this time with the Alnico. Instead, the sound was incredibly relaxing and euphoric, and yet I could still hear all the detail. Posted by Gang Twanger in 2012. And that's it, guys. That's my summary also for my experience of Ferrite drivers versus Alnico drivers. That a big commonality, the big difference between the two camps is that the Alnicos are much more relaxing and ceramic is in your face. So that's the difference in the sound. And of course, that happens more if your system is able to give you fine details. If it has a lot of negative feedback, not a lot of processing, your amp has high noise level, a lot of it is going to disappear. But if you have your system that allows you to hear stuff, and it's not that hard to do it. If you build my darling amp recommendation, you can have an amplifier for under $500 that can give you this type of experience that you can tell Alnico versus Ferrite. Then this is what you will hear, that ceramic magnets and neodymium or neodymium ferrites, they throw music at you. It's in your face, really. That's how you feel. And with Alnico, it's just so relaxed. And it's not that the details are not there. All the details are there, but it just feels so much more. It's not pushed at you. You feel that the ceramic and neodymium pushes the information at you, and there's like an extra intensity to it that can be just kind of like wears you down, and or actually wears me down. And with Alnico, I feel that I'm regenerating. It's like it almost, I feel like it allows my emotionality, my soul to expand. And the ferrite contracts, it pushes me into a tiny ball. And the Alnico, it lets me expand. That's the feeling I get. And it what you will get is how in tune are you with your feelings, with your emotions, with your perceptions, and how do you react to these types of feelings. Because I noticed that other people also react similarly to this, and some people have this reaction consciously, others unconsciously, and I just hear, oh, something is different, but I don't know what. But they sound very different, but point a gun at me, I can't tell you what's the difference. This is the difference. So okay, So let's now look at the next comment. I'm just browsing through them because I don't want to make 10 million more episodes of this series. How do you even tell if your magnets were Alnico? I don't think I ever been aware of the type of magnet my speakers were utilizing. Posted by Stereo Fanboy. So now I will give you a hint. So if your drivers look like this, so you have you have your driver, this is the front, this is the side, you see this is the basket it's holding, and the motor looks like this. It looks like a pancake, like a fat thing. And there's a I almost poked the driver. Shoot. So if you have a ferrite band around it, now it looks a little bit more dirty because I put extra ferrite in it. So these are colloidal, like micro ferrite particles in wax, in paraffin wax, that I put around it. And that's because the ferrite magnet itself is a rectangular shape. And when you have magnetic fields, it does not like these really hard breaks. So I put material with ferrite in it that to get rid of those hard edges, because the magnetic lines break there, and then that causes problems when the magnetic field has to fight the alternating current coming from the voice coil. So that's a little tweak. I will talk about that later. So just telling that right now this looks a little bit hinky because of that, but when I did this tweak, it was a noticeable improvement, change in sound, because it made the driver, the magnet, I would say stronger. So it allows the magnetic field to go more efficiently to the voice coil. But anyway, Ferrite driver looks like this. You see, it's flat and you can rotate any direction. It will look the same. There's that black band around a metallic bottom. Now, this is how you know that you have a Ferrite driver. Now, how do you know when you have an Alnico? Unboxing video! There you go. This is a Diatom P610MB. This is an Alnico driver, a vintage Alnico driver, and made since, look at that, 50th anniversary since 1946. So this driver was first made in 46, year after the World War, and produced for 50 years. So why would a company make a driver for 50 years? Because it was that good. And I can tell you guys, this is the secret sauce driver. I think I already made a video on this. If you want to build a loudspeaker for little money and you want an endgame loudspeaker and you have a small room, this is the answer for your prayers. Of course, you can look out, find other sites, other things, but why I can recommend them? Because this gives you the Altec voice of the theater sound. Not 100%, it cannot. But if you don't have the space to house a pair of voice of the theater cabinets, you just have the space for a pair of bookshelf speakers, because this goes in a speaker which is like a large bookshelf. Then this will get you 80% of the voice of the theater sound with the same tonality as the voice of the theater speaker has. Is just astonishing. I heard them, the A5 voice of the theater tweaked to the max, and the Diatom speaker with these drivers, like A-beat one after the other, and it was like hearing the voice of the theater in a slightly smaller version, but it imaged as big as the sound was coming from giant speakers and not bookshelves. I thought that I must be drugged, because those small speakers sounded like almost like voice of the theaters, which just sound like enormous. So let me show you. These are 6-inch drivers. 6-inch babies, babies, and they sound like giant speakers. Look, beautiful. And this is how it looks like. This is how you can tell it's an Alnico. Look at that. You see, this is how the motor looks like. On one side, it looks like dick, and you have a metal ring, an iron ring surrounding, and here this protects the outer layer, protects the voice coil, and the voice coil is within that, and within that, in the center, there's a round Alnico magnet. So the Alnico magnet is in there, and there's an iron band around it. So this is the motor, and the motor is so efficient that if I get something iron, it doesn't stick to it. There, you see, there's no leakage magnetism. It doesn't stick. Ha! All of the magnetic lines are inside. Everything is a compact motor. So the thing with Alnico is not just that the motor is different and it's weaker. Who cares if it's weaker? You just use more of it and you can get the same strength as the ferrite motor or as the neodymium motor. For example, they say, oh, neodymium is so much stronger than either ferrite or Alnico. But who cares? Look at my Altec 288 compression driver. It's Alnico. Is it weak? It's 2.05 Tesla in the voice coil, which is what the best neodymium drivers get. That's the best that you can get today. 2 Tesla, that's it. Doesn't matter which magnet you use. So the strength of the magnet is really like a piston size in a car. So basically the Altecs are, it's like a half a liter per piston per cylinder volume in a car engine. But how strong your engine is, it's not defined by what's the volume of each piston. It's defined by how many pistons it has, what's the total volume of the engine. And you can build like a 4-liter engine of smaller pistons or bigger pistons. And guess what? If you build a same liter engine from smaller pistons, the smaller pistons can accelerate faster than the big ones. So actually you will have an engine that revs much faster than the one with the bigger pistons. So that's the car analogy. And going back to the speaker analogy, here, because the Alnico is in the center, you have a permanent magnet next to the voice coil, and the permanent magnet it resists the alteration of the magnetic field caused by the energy in the voice coil. So it's not going to be subject that much to the music than the ferrite or the neodymium, where you have the ferrite around. So let's just go back to the ferrite. So here we have the ferrite, and if I use this, you see, blip, it sticks there. And that's because the magnetic lines of the ferrite leak out. And that's why when you have a TV set, you can't use ferrite drivers next to your TV set. You have to use the Alnicos, because when we had the CRT TVs, you could see that the lines of the TV are getting distorted. It didn't work with ferrites. And of course you would say, oh, you can magnetically shield the ferrite drivers. And bingo, if you magnetically shield the ferrite driver, you improve their performance. But you have to do that. And for the Alnico, you don't need to shield it. You don't need to play tricks and gimmicks, because they are already they have a comparatively perfect magnetic circuit, while the ferrite and the neodymium have a very poor magnetic circuit in comparison. Now, what else? So let's talk about the what they say, that the Alnico is more expensive to produce, and I'm calling a bullshit on that, a BS, because look at that. So these two drivers I showed to you guys, they have about the same output, the same efficiency. So if I throw 1 watt of power out of them, then I'm going to get about 95 dB per watt meter volume coming out of them. And let's have a look. What is the motor size that is required from Alnico? What is the magnet size that's required from Alnico? And what is the ferrite size that produces the same equivalent level output? Let me just grab both drivers at the same time, if I can. Let's just show them to you. Look, this is a tiny motor. It doesn't even have any weight. And listen, this is a bloody giant in comparison. It weighs like 5 times more. For the ferrite magnet, they have to use like about 10 times the weight of the ferrite compared to the weight of the Alnico. So even if Alnico is 5 times more expensive than ferrite, the total amount of ferrite here is twice the cost of Alnico. Plus, you would need higher machining cost for all the iron that goes in there compared to the iron going into the Alnico driver. So even that cost is a BS issue, but why Alnico went out of business from the drivers is because back in the 70s, cobalt was simply not available. So companies did not get the magnets. And the price doesn't matter when you can't buy it, right? And nowadays, even if we would set up production lines to manufacture a driver 10,000 units of ferrite, 10,000 units of Alnico, there would not be a major difference between the prices of those two if the runs are the same. Why we see even today that ferrite is much cheaper than Alnico is because the same ferrite drivers are made in like a 10,000 run production, and the same Alnico is made in maybe like 100 units in comparison. And when you have that vastly disproportionate amount of units made, then making 100 units is much more expensive. You have a lot of costs that instead of splitting those costs up to 10,000 units, you have to get them back on 100 units, and that's making the Alnico drivers today much more expensive. More comment. Top manufacturers, JBL, etc. knew how to do great speakers using Alnico. Once they couldn't source economically Alnico, they had to resort to other magnet materials like ceramics. Ferrite is ceramics. And they found many problems with non-linearity, which means non-Alnico speakers weren't so good. Those problems were solved eventually. Later, excellent speakers have been made regardless of magnet material, so I wouldn't romanticize Alnico so much. The best obviously is a field coil. And he is absolutely right. The best magnet is an electromagnet. So for loudspeakers, the best magnet type is the very first type that was used for magnet, like the Rice and Kellogg driver, which was the very first electrodynamic driver. It was a field coil driver. And because at that time we didn't have permanent magnets yet. Permanent magnets were invented after we have invented the field coil driver. And because the field coil is cheaper, you don't need to generate that permanent DC based electric field with the field coil. It's much more easier to have a permanent magnet driver. That's why they started using Alnicos, because Alnicos were the first magnets that we used that had high enough strength to fuel a driver. But regardless of that, field coil is the best choice because the magnetic field of the field coil mirrors exactly the requirements of the voice coil. Both of them are coils made out of the same material, generating electromagnetic field, same shape, same direction, every parameter same. So that's why field coil is the best choice. However, it's very elaborate, and unless you are a total audio nut, it's out of the question for you, because actually per speaker requires a separate amplifier per field coil to drive it, and that just increases your system complexity tremendously. And if you skip on it, so you just get like a cheap amp driving creating the field coil, it's not going to be as good as an Alnico. You really need to get the field really right. And Frank shared a great trick on that. You need very high quality battery, and you can use ByBees on that to improve. And Lou, he is using very high quality amplifiers with a hard brute force filtering, a choke filtering, LC filtering, and it's, you have to go to town to the end of the world to really do it right. So that's why field coil is the best solution, but you really have to dedicate your life to audio to do it in your room. That's why we are playing around with Alnico or Ferrite. So thank you for tuning in. It's 21 minutes, so we are stopping now, and I let Nelly do her projects and works because she's been keeping quiet so I can make these videos. So big thank you for Nelly, and thank you for the cats. They've been quiet. Oh, Machi fall asleep. And have an awesome day. Please like and subscribe, and we will continue. Bye bye.